Okay.
Do what you feel. Hey, y'all. It is Wednesday, 1 o'clock, our standard time. And welcome to Book World The Great Escape. So tell me, Mike, how was your weekend?
Had a great weekend. Melly and I were at the SBC Comic Con in Bossier City at the Bossier City Civic Center.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Had a great time and sold a lot of books. Sold out of my first book in the Conquest of the Veil series, The Open
Nice.
Portal, and got to meet some interesting people. Right across from us, of course, Comic Cons often have stars
Mm-hmm.
from movies and shows of
Voiceover
past and
artists,
present. Right,
actors. Yep.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so across from our vendor booth were a line of stars, including some of the original Power Rangers.
Oh, no
But
way.
oh yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
And one of my favorite actors, Michael Ben, who
Mm-hmm.
was Kyle Reese in The Terminator. He was Corporal Dwayne Hicks in Aliens, and he was Johnny Ringo in the movie Tombstone with Val Kilmer. And
Oh, loved Johnny Ringo.
and so I got an opportunity to go and talk to him, and
No
oh
way.
yeah, to m- and I what I told him was normally sequels of any movie, whether they be fantasy, mainstream, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
rarely reach the level of success that the original movie does. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they come close, but rarely do they match, and even rare do they exceed. In
Mm-hmm.
my humble opinion, Aliens, which was the sequel to Alien,
Mm-hmm.
and interesting because Alien was uh, had a different producer. It was well, it was James Cameron that did Aliens, that directed Aliens, and Ridley Scott did the original movie Alien. But
Mm-hmm.
Aliens, in my opinion, is actually better
Mm-hmm.
than the original movie Alien. And Michael Ben and I agreed on that.
Wow.
He thought it was better as well, but loved his character in Terminator. Loved his character as Corporal Hicks
Mm-hmm.
in Aliens, and of course, he played a completely different character in Tombstone. He was the bad guy, the gunslinger. That was Johnny Ringo.
Yeah, but I still liked him.
Yes, whom, as you recall, is who Val Kilmer said, "I'll be your Huckleberry." You know that
Mm-hmm.
that famous line. So
Val Kilmer's another one of my favorites. So.
oh yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a blast, and I said sold a lot of books. Was we were tired at the end of it. It was very successful. But I
Mm-hmm.
understand you were at a Comic Con as well
I
this
well,
past
I
weekend.
was under a different capacity than I normally am. Last year there was an issue regarding Conroe Comic Con, and basically what it is, I kind of went in and took over the floor.
Mm-hmm.
um, the basic blueprint was out, and then I was able to take care of all the artists and the vendors and made sure the guests got to where they needed to be, that sort of thing. And it was just super fun for me. I never sat down. My ankles were like super swollen by the end of the weekend, to the point that my sandals actually scarred my feet, and I still have a scar on it.
Oh my goodness.
But I loved it. So the owner of that Comic Con says, "Hey, I have another one going on in San Angelo in February. Do you want to come do the same thing there?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" So there's multiple reasons why I go to different Comic Cons. One is now going to be as floor coordinator. That's one capacity. Another one is for the Con Hour podcast that I do. We go and we interview a lot of the artists, the vendors, the guests, that sort of thing. Have a lot of fun with that. And then also for Texas Sisters Press, and my author stuff is still in there somewhere. That is still my first love, so it's always there. But yeah, we went to St. Angelo Comic Con. For those who love voice artists, such as from My Hero Academia, there was John. Oh, see if I can pronounce his name correct. Grimillion? No, Grimion. Grimion. I
Mm-hmm.
always mispronounce it, but it's spelled Grimillion, but it's pronounced Grimion. So, John, I got it right this time if you see this. So, John Grimion Christina Kelly, Brittany Karbowski, Albie Robles, and then John Swayze, who's like got a
Mm,
ton of stuff under his name. He was there too. He's the only one I did not get an autograph of.
mm,
But yeah, it was super fun, despite the fact that we were kind of in competition with the stock show, which is right next door, and there was some super soccer tournament going on. It was actually really steady. He was very
mhm,
intelligent, Scott was, in how he did this Comic Con. There were tournaments for not just video games, but for like D&D type card games and dice games and stuff like that. So there were like different tournaments going on. So it was pretty neat. Then there was the obvious cosplay contest on Saturday. And then my favorite is the kids cosplay contest. I mean, like parents doing it right. You know,
mhm.
these kids are downright adorable. And so I have fun. My ankles are probably twice the size than they should have been. They're still a little swollen. And then now I have my mother-in-law literally flying in today for an entire week. She got caught in the snowstorm. She was supposed to go into Denver, but now she's going into Chicago. So she's got like a stupid 4-hour layover. I feel really bad for her. Yeah. So yeah, I have
Wow.
two mother-in-laws. So
Wow.
yeah. So this one's coming in from Cali today, and she'll be here for about a week. So we're gonna have some
Wow.
fun. So, but today, I don't know about you, but it's one of my favorite days. I like doing book review day. So before we
Good.
jump into these, why do people do book reviews?
Why do authors want them to do book reviews, or what motivates just the average person to do a book review?
Why don't you do the author side of it and I'll do the reader side of it?
Well, speaking from an independent author, an indie author standpoint, book reviews are kind of like the gold standard by which your books and novels are recognized. Obviously, when you get a good book review, it's like a charge of adrenaline
Mhm.
to any writer, to any author. A kind word, even if it's just a sentence or so, is often makes your day, makes your week, maybe,
Mhm.
maybe even your month.
Yeah, I mean, you could be
Or
hitting that super down low point of why in the world am I still doing this? You know, purposely bleeding over
right,
pages every time you go to write a book. And it's that one thing that just kind of keeps you going. I have
right.
actually a certain number set aside specifically for those days.
I had allergies. Apologize. The From a practical standpoint, excuse me. It helps sell your books. Most people, when they're looking for books, particularly outside of mainstream authors,
Mhm.
they may see a book that catches their eye. So, what is the first thing they'll look at is perhaps the book cover,
Mhm.
the back matter, and then most importantly, they'll start looking at the reviews.
Mhm.
And if the reviews are good, then say, hey, I may give this a try. This person has a lot of good reviews.
Mhm.
Man. Anyway, and then of course, Amazon. If you haven't listed on Amazon, their algorithms are among other things based upon reviews and the number of reviews. So it helps to sell your books, and that so it makes your author feel good, gives them reinforcement they're doing a good job, and it helps to sell your books. It helps to get them noticed.
Mhm. Mute your mic when you cough, please.
With okay,
It comes over. Um, as far as the algorithms, I don't know if you mentioned that, if that's what you're talking about. The algorithms, it's not just a pat on the back for authors, it helps boost where they are on Amazon. So it's like we keep asking for them. We're not doing it so, hey, I can just, pat myself on the back. I'm doing great, that sort of thing, self-esteem stuff. But it helps with the ratings themselves. It helps them to be able to push us up a little bit higher.
but of course, everybody would love a 5-star rating.
Yeah.
But 3-star, 4-star, those ratings are good as well.
Mhm.
And any rating actually counts on the algorithms.
Mhm.
But
And you
and
don't even necessarily have to write like a paragraph or anything. Sometimes you can just put a certain amount of stars and send it up there. It doesn't have to be anything even overly
no,
long.
no, and I
Just
think and I think we're going to do a broadcast sometime in the near future about how to do reviews.
mhm,
That they're not that hard to do. A
mhm,
lot of people think that you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to do a review, but really it's easy.
Mhm.
And
I mean, if you're
and
on Kindle, it pops up right when you're done with the book.
it's not hard at all,
Mhm.
and it takes just a few minutes to do. And for indie authors, again, it's very important, more so for mainstream, simply
Mhm.
because indie authors are struggling to get their books and their publications noticed.
Mhm.
So if you're out there and you've read a book that by CJ Peterson
C.J.
or
Peterson or
author
Michael
Michael
Scott
Scott Clifton
Clifton.
or any other independent
Please
author,
and thank you.
yes, yes, we would very much appreciate a review.
Now, from the reader's point of view, reviews are important because A, it helps you to be heard. It's kind of nice to know that your opinion actually counts.
Right?
But you are also, like we said before, you're helping the authors to kind of see. Sometimes I will read reviews, and I'll read them to see if there's any constructive
Okay.
criticism. I have no problem with criticism as long as it's constructive and not destructive. There is a difference. Constructive is there something I can fix for future books?
Hmm.
And I found quite a few of them in there. There's some really good gold nuggets in there. It's not just pats on the back. It's, hey, is there something else I can do to, improve my writing along the way? Because your readers are just as important as your editors when it comes to some of that stuff. It's very helpful. Um,
That's a good point, CJ. I hadn't thought
mhm,
about that, but you're right.
mhm,
Uh, if they can sometimes find things that, well, I missed that, and you're right,
mhm.
constructive criticism, not troll type stuff.
Yeah, I honestly, for trolls, I let my readers handle it and they do an awesome job. So, my readers who take care of stuff, thank you. You do great. I just let them handle it and they they figure it out with them later. But yeah, you can have your opinion known. You can possibly help to shape the next book that this author writes. You can also, from the reader's standpoint, decide, for example, I don't know, for example, but you can decide, is this book actually right for me? Say there's graphic violence or something in
Hmm.
there that you might not have expected, and somebody's put that in the review. Hey, just fair warning, this is what's in there. It's kind of helpful to figure it out, that sort of
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
So, we have a lot of author friends. And so, we have huge, like my bookshelf. I do this thing called book swaps when it
Hmm.
comes to going to the Comic Cons and stuff. I will actually exchange books with an author. And the reason I do that is twofold. One, because I get an autographed copy of the book, as do they. They get an autograph of mine, I get one of theirs. But the other thing it does is it adds to my bookshelf. And also, when I get back, I can share that book with the world. So, as same as I did
Okay.
with sharing my Comic Con stash, I do the same thing with the books. I make sure to tag the author and give them a little bit extra advertising going a long way, and it helps. But with our vast number of people, I have got to have like over 50 some signed books on my shelf. But I love collecting books. Eventually I'm going to have like a little neighborhood library sort of thing.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
I'm excited. I'm pretty happy. But among those, uh, if we can start the reviews with one of mine today,
Okay.
actually, is one of those author friends. And I physically reviewed the book on my blog called the Bookshelf or the Shelf Life blog on my website, cjpetersonwrites.com. But this one is called Somewhere Between by Patty Wiseman. And I've actually
Okay.
had this book for a while, and thank goodness she's very patient. She let me take time to read it. Um, it's a pretty quick read. It's fast and it's fascinating. I like books that I can't predict the end. And it's like I knew that there was something, I just wasn't 100% sure which one. I was kind of tossed between two people over which one it was, and I was wrong. And I like being surprised. But it's a little bit of a ghost story. It's not a scary ghost story. It's kind of like it's a mystery ghost story from the
Hmm.
past. This takes place in 1856 Texas, and this young lady is a governess for two children. Two? No, three children. Three children. And these family secrets have just kind of compiled one on top of the other, kind of like, oh, the tangled web we weave when we
Hmm.
start to deceive, when we practice to deceive. That's what's happening. This family is a very prominent family. and their secrets have taken things to like a whole other level. And when you get to the end, you're going to be like, are you kidding me? So it's a really good one. It's like I said, it's called Somewhere Between by Patty Wiseman. Definitely give it 5 stars. I'm going to put the link here in the chat, and I have dropped it to a bit.ly link. That way everybody
Okay.
can see it. So it's a little bit easier to do it. But definitely, I would totally recommend it. Patty Wiseman did a great job with this. Um, I gave it, I think I gave it 4.5 or 5 stars, one of the two. But you
Okay.
can find that on the Shelf Life blog, the more kind of laid out version. One thing I do with my reviews is I don't just put it on Amazon. I also make sure to put it on Goodreads as well, because it
Right.
also helps the author and those, to kind of go, okay, yeah, I see it. And it sticks around and it gives the authors, you know, something to share around to
Hmm.
others. So definitely, if you're kind of like a little who done it meets ghost story, paranormal sort of thing with lots of secrets, this is the one to go to. Somewhere Between by Patty Reisman.
And Patty, of course, we both know Patty. Patty's an
Mhm.
excellent author, and she's very meticulous and uh, with her research and her writing. And she was kind of a mentor to me. I think in one of our previous broadcasts, we'd be talking about about writing and encouragement, and Patty
Mhm.
provided a lot of encouragement to me when I really needed it to just to pick writing back up again. So thank you, Patty, and she is a tremendous author. So she's
Yep,
got several other books out, and I urge readers to if you like any one of her books, you'll like all of the books. So check them out.
definitely. So what do you have today?
So what I have today is, and this is a rather dog-eared copy, so I apologize. Uh, this is one of my favorite all-time books. It's called The Face in the Frost by John Bellairs. And an interesting, this book was published in 1969. Uh, John Bellairs, interestingly enough, is a children's author, but actually, this is one of his few uh, books that he published that were for adults and young adults, uh, which is kind of out of his wheelhouse, so to speak. But I rank it right up there in terms of fantasy publications with Lord of the Rings
Mhm.
and the C.S. Lewis series. Um, it's uh,
Oh, that's high praise.
it's one of the best uh, fantasy books I've ever read, and it influenced me quite a bit, not just in terms of my love for fantasy, but even today, the fantasy that I write. So if you can imagine taking Harry Potter and crossing him with Lord of the Rings, y- you
Kind of
get
unique.
something kind of like The Face and the Frost by John Bellairs.
Hmm.
And a lot of fantasy that we write and read today, authors that write fantasy, readers who like to read fantasy, a lot of the elements that you see on a regular basis in fantasy uh, are found and probably can be traced to, among other things, The Face and the Frost.
Mhm.
Um,
Now you said this
and
was written a while ago?
it was published in 1969.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, and the two main characters in The Face and the Frost are Prospero, a wizard, and Roger Bacon, a wizard.
Mhm.
They live in a world where you have two kingdoms, a North Kingdom and a South Kingdom. The North Kingdom is sort of divided among seven different kings. They choose a king to defend. They choose a king to not necessarily rule the others, but to defend the kingdom if case they're invaded by people from invaders from the sea.
Mhm.
But he really has no more power than the other kings. And then you have the South Kingdom, which is where Prospero lives, which is sort of a conglomeration of little fiefdoms and kingdoms some
Mhm.
that aren't much larger than a village, and they print their own money, they levy their own armies, so it's a very disorganized, you know, very loosely knit kingdom
Mhm.
where there's really no one leader. It's basically a potpourri of that. What I'd like to do, and we talked about this, and I've not done this before, is to just read a few excerpts from it. I think they're kind of enlightening.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, like the introduction, and I'm starting with the introduction, it's only about a paragraph long. In the roadside towns, the wizards picked up stories and rumors. One man told how frost formed on the windows at night, though it was only the middle of September. There were no scrolls or intricate fern leaves, no branching overlaid star clusters. Instead, people saw seasick, wavy lines, disturbing maps that melted into each other, and always seemed on the verge of some recognizable but fearful shape. At dawn, the frost melted, always in the same way. At first, two eye holes formed, and then a long, steam lipped mouth that spread and ate up the wandering white picture. And so, to get an idea of where Face and the Frost
Mhm.
came from. And then one last excerpt, which is kind of a description of Prospero's house, and I'll be very brief. Several centuries or so long ago, in a country whose name doesn't matter, there was a tall, skinny, straggly bearded old wizard named Prospero, and
Mhm.
not the one you are thinking of either. He lived in a huge, ridiculous, doodad covered, trash filled, two-story horror of a house that stumbled, staggered, and dribbled right up to the edge of a great shadowy forest of elms, oaks, and maples. It was a house whose gutter spouts were worked into the shape of whistling sphinxes and screaming bearded faces, a house whose white wooden porch was decorated with carved bears, monkeys, and toads, and fat women in togas holding sheaves of grain, a house whose steep gray slate roof was capped with a glass enclosed, twisted copper columned observatory. On the artichoke dome of the observatory was a weather vane shaped like a dancing hippopotamus, and as the wind changed, it blew through the nostrils of the hippo's hollow head, making a whiny, snarfling sound that fortunately could not be heard unless you were on the roof fixing slates. So
Very descriptive.
you kind of get the sense of, this is very much uh, again, it's got a Harry Potter vibe, but at
Mhm.
the same time, it has a Lord of the Rings vibe. Uh, it's not, I've got a paperback. It's only about uh, 174, 175 pages long. So it's a fairly quick read. It's almost a little bit longer than novella length, but
Mhm.
if you like fantasy, uh, I would say this is one that you would really enjoy, and I
I
highly
think I'll get
recommend it.
it. I think it was on, ebook, audiobook, and I think paperback on Amazon, the Amazon link that I have down here below.
Okay.
So, definitely there. Since you read the back, I'm gonna go ahead and read the back of Patty's real quick, unless you
Okay.
have anything you'd like to add, just
No, no.
because it does tell a lot when you actually read the back. I think that's something we need to add to our book review days.
Hmm.
So Somewhere Between by Patty Wiseman, 1856 Texas. Phoebe Whiteside, a 37-year-old governess, finds new employment at Queen's Court Acres, a stately mansion in South Texas. She also finds a ghost. The three-story mansion harbors the spirit of Edmund McAdams, the former owner of the estate, whose murder was never solved. Old mysteries are revealed, and Phoebe begins a quest to bring Edmund's tortured spirit peace and reunite him with his lost love. A Pandora's box of secrets. See, I told you. A Pandora's box of secrets and lies are unleashed as she digs deeper into forbidden territory. Everyone has something to lose if the secrets come out. One will kill to see that doesn't happen.
Mm,
So somewhere in
good.
between. Like I said, it's a who done it that you are not going to be able to figure out till the very end.
The
So
best kind.
exactly. I like them when I cannot predict them. So like I said, I knew it was one of the two, but I was like, I was wrong. And then there was one that just totally came out of left field, and I'm like, "Dang, where'd that come from?" So, but yeah, she keeps trying to not figure this out, but everyone's telling her to stop it, but she just cannot stop. So, she can't help herself. So, definitely 2 good books. We have a fantasy and a mystery going on today. So, check them out. The links are down in the chats. Next week, I'm super excited. We have Rosa Marie Garcia. She is a comic artist coming out to talk about being a comic artist as well, but a book that her and Fern Brady are working on getting out pretty soon. So
That's awesome.
I'm super
Looking
excited.
forward to it.
Oh, Patty just tuned in. I tuned in. What a surprise. Thank you so much, CJ.
Mhm.
You're welcome, Miss Patty. You might want to rewind the whole thing and hear it all. But that was just the tail end of it. So glad you're here and glad you enjoyed it. But yeah, definitely if you want to give your favorite author a hug, make sure to review their books. You can review them on
Awesome.
Amazon. You can even, if you didn't purchase them, you can still even go to Barnes and Nobles. If you didn't purchase it from Barnes and Nobles, you can still put the review up on Barnes and Nobles. You can put it up on Goodreads. I
Good.
have them up on my blog, the Shelf Life blog. There's lots of places that you can go to share these things, and the best thing you can do for an author is to share their work. The best form of advertisement is word of mouth, hands
Awesome.
down.
That's right.
Oh, she did listen from the beginning. She says, I listened from the beginning. Good deal. So awesome. So check out the 2 books that we have out. We have Michael's Choice, which is The Face and the Frost by John Bellairs. And there's a link for that one. Like I said, I did a bit.ly link. That way it's a little bit easier to follow along to find. My choice for today is Somewhere Between by Patty Weissman. Again, the link is also in the comments. Make sure to check out those books and see what you got, and tune in next Wednesday, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time for Rosa Marie Garza. Sorry, Rosa Marie. It's Rosa Marie Garza who will be talking about her book with Fern Brady, which is comics and being a comic artist. And I know she's actually illustrated another friend's book of mine, another author friend's book, friend of mine's book. So yeah. So check her out. She'll be coming in 1 o'clock, same time, same stations you found us. And make sure to subscribe and follow along. Until then, have a good week